When Hannah first told us that she was pregnant, we were devastated, to say the least. I don't know that there's even a good enough word for how we felt. A lot of crying, a lot of screaming. First few days were not pretty. It was really, really, really difficult. We had our family over and just sort of cried together and trying to process it. I think that's the hardest part, is that you've hit this point where you realize as an adult that her entire life has changed. Every plan that you have made for her is different. Every hope, every dream that you've had for her future, and you begin to look at those things. And the first few days, it's through the lens of grief, and it's really hard to see the potential for what it is. But I think there's also that part of me that realized, wait a minute, I'm grieving and there's life. Should I be grieving? Okay, I can't stop. And so it's emotional, I would say. It took us about a week or two to function and be able to discuss it, even just amongst the two of us, my husband and I. It was hard. It was that difficult. We had a decision to make. We felt like from day one, we felt like a decision needed to be made. And so I think everybody knows that there are 3 basic decisions for pregnancy. And fortunately for us as believers, one of those options was just really easy. And we were able to take abortion completely off the table. And so that left us with 2, which would be parenting, Hannah keeping her baby, or putting this baby up for adoption. The reality is those 2 options sound like polar opposites, and they're nothing but totally alike. I think because we are a family of adoption was always just sort of something we knew was there. So the decision for us came down to really having to do a gut check, to do one of those, look yourself in the mirror and be honest about who you are, what you believe, and what you're capable of, and more importantly, not capable of. And so we kind of started with looking at Hannah. And at the time, she's 15 years old. You begin to think about all the things that you want for her. I want her to go to school. I want her to get asked to homecoming. I want her to go to her prom, and I want her to go to the football games and the pep rallies. I want her to do all that high school has to offer. I realize with a child that doesn't enjoy school very much and struggles, how much more is she going to struggle? The school has done a great job of sending a teacher to her, plus sending someone with the pregnancy program that has come and talked to her about where she's at and what to expect with her body and all of those things. So that's actually been a pretty decent experience for us. I think one overarching thing that every teen mom would have to agree to is that they're immature, and none of them are really ready for this. I'm not sure any of us, when we first parent, are really ready for it. And so there was a hard look at Hannah from that standpoint. Could she do this? And how much would her life change if she did? And then from there, thinking about the baby. What baby sits in heaven and says, hey God, send me to the teen mom who's clueless? No baby wants that. No baby says, gosh, I hope I get a teen mom who is growing up with me, right? Statistically, relationships in teens don't typically work. They don't last. And so realizing that this baby could be raised not just by a teen mom, but a single one. I can't imagine there's a teen mom out there who parents by herself. It really relies on mom and dad to do the work. So I had to take a hard look at my husband and I, and realizing we like where we are in life. We love that we have date night whenever we want, that we don't hire a babysitter anymore. When him and I started off in our marriage, we had decided if all possible, we never wanted our kids to go to daycare. So him and I worked opposite of each other all their lives to make that happen. And now that they're older, we finally work the same schedule and we have time off together. A new baby ruins that. So everything changes. And so then you look at the baby's perspective of that and you say, what baby says to himself, not only do I want a teen mom and potentially no dad, but I want old parents to raise me, grandparents to raise me. I myself am adopted. My child is adopted. My child is now putting her child up for adoption. And I get that from so many perspectives, and it's that word wanted. When I was a child, all I wanted was to be wanted, and the couple wanted me. And when I look at Hannah, I see the child I wanted. And that's what I want for her baby. I want him to be wanted by two people who are thrilled with the opportunity to love him and parent him, that have a nursery set up and their excitement is just overflowing. I want that for him. I want him to have parents who are thrilled when he cries in the middle of the night because they just want to see him one more time. I want all of that for him. So a couple of weeks ago, we had an opportunity to choose our family. I would have thought it would have been a daunting task. I was a little concerned. You have all these people that are great. How do you pick one? And the short answer is you don't, God does. And he knew exactly. Hannah and I were on the same page. We didn't question anything. It was perfect. Over the last few weeks, we've had an opportunity to get to know this family and to talk to them. And the thing they say the most that warms my heart, well, there are a couple, but they say that just warms my heart. One, they talk about the future. Not the future of when this baby's born. They talk about years down the road. They talk about, wow, when the baby does this milestone, this is where Hannah will be. These people expect to be in our lives forever, to do life with us as long as that's what we decide. So I go back to that first thought of, are there really two choices in a way? Yes, there are. You have the choice of parenting or putting up for adoption, but they're really more alike than you realize. They're really just parenting differently. Somebody else gets up with him in the middle of the night. Somebody else figures out what elementary school he's going to go to, but you love him from afar, and we get to be a part of his life as much as we want. The thing I prayed for most was that they would love my child, and they do. Every mom wants someone to love their child. These people love my child. They love my daughter. When they talk to her, they always ask her, how are you and how can we pray for you? Not the baby. They're excited for the baby, but they care about her. They want to know that she's going to be okay. And that's just warms my mama heart to know. So being out in public with a daughter who is pregnant is hard for me. Some days, maybe not so much. Most days, yeah. There is embarrassment. There is shame. I think for a mom, and I'm sure for a dad as well, it's, how did I screw this up so bad? I must have messed up as a mom and a dad. Our parenting must really stink if this has happened to us. And so it's that shame from that, not because my child is pregnant and this happened. It's more selfish. It's more, I must have done this wrong. I must not be a good enough mom that this happened. And so I think that's where most of the shame comes from. But there have been several times walking through the store that I've said, do you have a bigger sweatshirt? Can you pull that shirt down some? Just wanting there to not be looks. And I wish I could say that it's because I love my daughter so much and I just don't want people staring at her. And while there's an element to that, it's more of a selfish element than it is anything. I've always told my girls that if you ever get pregnant, you will have to go to school and you have to show everybody and you will have to put your baby up for adoption because I'm not raising anybody's kid, not knowing I would have to be here one day. It does change things. So I think it's having adopted children. Adoption is always talked about in our home. It's something we're very comfortable with. So I don't know that it was necessarily an out of the blue thought that somebody had to bring to us. I think it was always knowing our three options. So our first step after I sort of come out of my turtle shell was remembering the sign, Pregnancy Help for You. And I didn't know what that place was and what they did, but we showed up and they were able to do a pregnancy test, a sonogram, some counseling. They're probably one of the first ones that told us about Embrace Grace and led us there, which has been tremendous. Through that, we saw the legacy sign for adoption. And so we knew that was there. I have tons of friends who have adopted and they all have used a different agency. So I knew some of the bigger names. But then when I met with Legacy, one of the things that struck me as so different was how much you love our daughters and how they're first. The first thing that you said to us was that if it were just about the baby, I could put a baby in a day. That's no problem. It's about loving you. And that's what I wanted. I wanted somebody that put my daughter first. I want somebody to love her the way I love her. And so that was important to me. Legacy led us to a wonderful OBGYN who we love greatly and will continue to use for years to come. So there's that. And then just being there, those times that I've gotten, I have called Marcy before in the middle of the evening to cry because something crazy happened. And she's been there to talk me down and to say it's gonna be okay. But she's taken care of some of the physical needs of Hannah, but also some of the emotional needs, and having somebody that shows up, once a week and then just sits down and wants to know how she's doing and how they can help her. I think that's more than anything been important to us. So has this been hard? There are times it is hard and there are times that it's not. Once the decision was made, I think that's the hardest part is really looking at yourself and going through that. But then after that, God really just did the rest. He really just showed up and did the rest and has made this so seamless. So it's not easy in a sense, but it's not hard either. It's really just become our life, I think, right now. It's just where we are. The most challenging part for me in Hannah being pregnant is the embarrassment. Is definitely the embarrassment. I think that's it more than anything. It was extremely hard for me to share with my friends that she was pregnant. And if I'm honest, I really haven't shared with very many people that she is pregnant. Dealing with the embarrassment is hard because it comes and goes at times that you don't think it should. And about the time that you think you're in a good place, you're right back there again. In coping with the embarrassment, it's just been having a good friend that I could call and say anything to, and that knows me and loves me and knows where I'm coming from and isn't going to give me the pat answers, but it's just gonna listen. That's really all that you want sometimes, is someone just to sit on the other end of the phone or in front of you and just listen. I think my biggest challenge with Hannah choosing adoption is the fear of her backing out. I think that's probably my biggest fear as a mom who has adopted and gets the gravity of that and the importance of that, and how your heart becomes so in love with a baby you've never met. I can't imagine the heartbreak that the mom would feel should she back out. So I think my biggest thing would just be my fear of her backing out for her sake, because of everything she would lose out on and everything that would change her life completely, all the reasons that we chose adoption to begin with. Second to that, I think a lot about the depression when Hannah comes home from the hospital. One of my friends adopted, and she had held her baby after he was about 3 hours old, after the mom had had her time. She said the hardest day for her was the day that mom left the hospital, because she turned and walked out empty-handed, and she said, I sat in that floor holding her baby and I cried for her because she left empty-handed. And I think that was the first time I thought, oh my gosh, I'm the one going home empty-handed. I've always been the one blessed. I'm going home with something precious, and now I'm going home empty-handed. The thing that I think I would want anyone to know, or a mom to know, if her daughter came to her pregnant, is that it's not the end of the world. She didn't do anything wrong, I'm sure. She's going to grieve, she's going to be happy, and she's going to be sad, and all of those things are okay. I think the most important thing is to step back and really take that hard look at your own child and see what they're capable of. And then the other thing I would want them to know is that there is a family out there. There is a couple out there that has never had a child, or can't have a child, or maybe does and can't have more, different situations. Either way, their heart is ready. They're wanting a baby. They're wanting this, and they want to do life with you. They want this open adoption. This is not something scary where you're going to hand your baby off and you're never going to see it again, and you're going to wonder. That there have been background checks, there have been FBI checks, and there have been every kind of thing that has gone on to make sure that this family is everything that they say that they are. You have to do none of the work except just trust. It's just an exciting time. It's exciting because we get to do life with a new family that we would never have met before. It's neat to watch new moms as they're getting ready for a baby, and I think the biggest thing is that I can find joy in this again that I couldn't find at the beginning. At the beginning, I felt grief and I was sad, and now I can be joyful. I find that now I can, silly as it may sound, now Hannah in the beginning would want me to, feel when baby kicked, and I'd be like, okay. But now I'm excited too. Now he has a purpose, he has a name, he has a family that he's going to, and I feel like I can get excited about him, and that's relieving.